Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, sponsored by the Draft Professors. We are here today with Draft Professors Hank, Drew, and Jordan. We're going to be diving in. I think we're going to cover the top 10 wide receivers this week. We're going to cover some wide receiver sleepers next week. So if you need some wide receivers, this is turning into wide receiver week at the Draft Professor because that's the podcast tomorrow night too. But Hank, the combine wound down. We got about 7 weeks till the draft. So how's the draft board coming along, and how would you describe your current state?
Yeah, the draft board's coming along really well. I'm currently in the process of transitioning everything I have onto a Google Sheet, which is taking a long time, but it'll be worth it in the future because it'll just make everything easier. I'm currently sitting in about 220 players. So by the time March comes around or April comes around, the draft comes around, it should be approaching 350 to 400, and that'll be enough to know enough about hopefully everybody that gets drafted. There's always a few that I don't have a full report on, but everything's coming along pretty well. Just long process getting everything on a Google Sheet.
Okay, and Drew, how about you? Where's your draft process at these days?
Yeah, I agree. It's a long process, especially with school and all that. But like Hank, I underwent the process of transferring everything to Google Sheets and redoing the entire thing a couple weeks ago. So it is very, very tedious and a lot of work, but it's going really well. Still scout some fun players. I mean, tonight get to talk about some wide receivers, which my favorite position to talk about personally, my favorite position to scout. So couldn't be happier to be here.
And Jordan, what is your overall draft process looking like right now?
Yeah, so I think I'm sitting at roughly 235 right now on my board. I think, like we talked about, what Hank said, this draft is just so insanely deep at multiple positions, and just going through from wide receiver to edge to safety and cornerback and interior offensive line, like it's just so in depth and so deep in this class. And I was able to start on the Google Sheet, so I haven't been able to. I didn't have to transfer, but just building it out this year, it seems a little bit more tedious for me than in recent memory.
Yeah, so I would be really curious what you guys were using before Google Sheets, but that's really none of my business.
I had a notebook, so that was not great for it.
Okay.
Handwriting everything is a little crazy. I can't lie.
Yeah, last year it was rough doing that, but
No, I made a Google slide, an individual Google slide for each player.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
I'm getting all that over right now. So
That's cool.
That file must have been time consuming to open.
yeah.
I had 11 different ones for the different positions. So that just
It
wasn't that
still
bad.
must have been.
Oh, that's pretty quick.
Well, I guess after only 60 slides deep. Yeah, because the one that I was using for scouting reports that had like 400 slides in it.
Yeah.
That was
That's a
getting
lot.
that was getting to be a lot. So we're here to discuss wide receivers. Jordan, who are your top 5 wide receivers?
Top 5, I have Tyson, Lemon, Tate, Omar Cooper Jr., and Denzel Boston are my top 5.
Okay. And then Drew, who are your top 5?
I got Denzel Boston at 1, Jordan Tyson at 2, Mekhi Lemon at 3, Carnell Tate at 4, then Chris Bell at 5.
Okay. And then Hank, who are your top 5?
I have Mekhi Lemon at 1, Ted Hurst at 2, Carnell Tate at 3, Jordan Tyson at 4, and Denzel Boston at 5.
Okay. So I think, Drew, you're leading the Denzel Boston fan club.
I thank you for it. I love Denzel Boston. Dude.
All
Yeah,
right, that's my
so-
guy.
Why don't you talk about Denzel Boston a little bit?
So first off, people are kind of flaming him for his combine thing right now and his combine performance. Yeah, it wasn't great, but you can't solely go off that. Tape beats combine. So although it wasn't great for his press, he'll be fine. And if it causes him to drop to the Saints, oh well. I guess I'll be fine with that. So Denzel Boston, what you get, he's a big body, 6'4", 212 pounds, I believe he measured it at. And that really translates to his contested catch ability. He turns 50-50 balls into 80-20. This year, he had, I believe, a 76.9% contested catch percentage. He's got smooth, long strides that can threaten a defender deep. And between the numbers, he is a master. He got 549 yards, between the hashes this year, and that's something that can translate to the NFL. He's got deceptive speed. He provides value on special teams. He was a kick and punt returner. So he's got that elusiveness that people aren't giving him credit for. He's got that speed that people aren't giving him credit for. And another bonus for him is he's an elite blocker on the perimeter. If you're running an outside zone, he is one of the receivers in the NFL next year that you'd want most blocking out there. So, I mean, I'm bullish on him. He did have a fairly limited route tree at Washington. I think he's capable of more, but I do want to see him kind of run that at his pro day and in his rookie season. But I'm extremely high in Denzel Boston. You're not going to find a lot of people who are more high than me on him, but I just see him translating to the NFL. I kind of see him being in the T. Higgins role, maybe a little bit more. I think he's got a ceiling of over that, but yeah, Denzel Boston is one of my guys this draft cycle.
Okay, Hank, was Ted Hurst 2 for you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, why don't you do Ted Hurst?
Yeah, so this is kind of funny because my comp for Ted Hurst is T. Higgins. So, but I can also see it for Denzel Boston as well. But for Ted Hurst, I'm probably the highest on him. I don't think anyone's higher on him than me and probably the world right now. He's top 10, top 12. I think he dropped a little bit. Top 12 player on my board. And I just think he has such a translatable game to the NFL. He was a verified 6'3", which was a very pleasant surprise at the Senior Bowl. And he kept that at the combine as well at over 200 pounds as well. I think he just has such a good release package, really good footwork, especially for his size. He's a contested catch machine, especially in the red zone. The ball tracking that he has and body control that he has to come down with passes that his quarterbacks consistently underthrew him and consistently set him up for failure. But because he's just that good in the air, he's able to adjust and make those plays that not a lot of wide receivers could. I think that he's also he's a good enough blocker. He's above average. He'll be good on the perimeter in the NFL. And then his stop and start ability at his size, his athleticism at his size is just amazing. He can separate vertically, but he also separate with his footwork and with his route running. So there's a lot to like. I do think, however, though, that there are some bad concentration drops on his tape. Those can always be fixed, but it's not something you want to see out of a guy who's in his 4th year of college. But other than that, Ted Hurst is just an X wide receiver with plus athleticism and great body control that's going to win. And I think I just see T. Higgins with him eventually in the NFL.
So he's one of the 3 guys I'm hoping Buffalo targets in round 1 at pick 26. So, yeah, I'm huge into Ted Hurst. So yeah, I love you have been promoting Ted Hurst on this channel, Hank, for months. So it's good to hear.
Yeah, just wait till Santana Hopper next year, and I will not shut up about him because he's going to be top 10 on my board. So
there may not be enough podcasts. I'm just saying.
Not. I could probably do a whole show going through his games, just talking about him.
So Jordan, was your wide receiver 1 Tyson Lemon?
It was Tyson.
Tyson. So why don't you talk about Jordan Tyson for a little bit?
So Jordan Tyson, he's just so fluid off the line. I think that's one of my favorite things about him is just being able to I think he sets up his cornerbacks really well. He attacks the ball really well. I think he's one of the better. I wouldn't say he's one of the better contested catch guys in this class because there's some really good contested catch guys, like I mentioned, Omar Cooper Jr. But I think he attacks the ball really well at the high point. He moves a little bit like Justin Jefferson, and I get it. It's Justin Jefferson, but I see a lot of Justin Jefferson when I watch his film. The biggest knock on him has been his medicals, and for obvious reasons. But everything was clear at the combine, so that was a positive for me. I have seen him drop a lot to Carolina recently. Not going to say I hate that, but so yeah, I'm a big fan. I think draft prospect fatigue really got the best of him coming into the year, and also the fact that he didn't play as much as he was hoping with his quarterback going down too. So I think again, one of those prospects where 2024 was a lot better than his 2025, but still overall, I think he's a really good prospect.
Okay, so buy or sell, Hank. If Jordan Tyson was completely healthy, he goes top 5 in the draft.
By that one, he would be top 3, I think, even in this, like especially.
Yeah, 5's generous. Yeah. And Drew, you're not in your head. Yes. Yeah. So really,
I don't think there's a chance he'd fall below the Titans if he was fully healthy. I think
I think the Jets at 2 would just take him. Garrett Wilson.
Yeah. Yep. So it's really the selection of Tyson is pretty much a bet on positive medicals.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I mean,
Which
the
is what-
getting cleared at the combine was good, but I mean, I brought this up with Tyson before. Some players are just injury prone, and that's just what they are, and they just can't avoid it for their whole careers. Now, some players are really injury prone in college, and they're perfectly fine in the NFL, and vice versa. So we're gonna have to see what he does in the NFL and how healthy he can stay. But if he just turns out to be a guy who just can't stay healthy, then it's gonna be kind of a bust at wherever he goes in the draft.
Mhm.
Yep. And okay, so Drew, buy or sell this. The general manager that drafts Jordan Tyson will not be a first-year GM.
I would buy that. Right now, I just think if you're a first year GM, obviously if you're in like a different market or something where you have a little bit more stability, you might be able to take a chance on him. But if you're fighting for your life out there, or you're trying to establish yourself, I don't know if you're going to be too enticed about drafting a receiver who's uber talented, but just hasn't been able to stay on the field. So I would just be a little bit more cautious there.
Yeah, and the reason I point that out is like nearly every GM, you tend to remember their first draft class, right? Like, the first draft pick for Brandon Beane was Josh Allen, right? You just remember, right? And if you miss on that pick, it's just difficult to live down. You can live down missing on a Kare Elam, right? Like 3 or 4 years later, but you can't live it down if you botch your first pick ever as a GM. That's a gym theory, but I'll add to the propaganda. So I believe all three of you had Makai Lemon in your top fives. Each of you had one player that was at least one player that was different in your top five, but Makai Lemon was pretty high, I believe, for all three of you.
Mm-hmm.
So, Drew, I'll pivot this one to you, but we're going to kind of go around the horn here on Makai Lemon. Do you think his athleticism is going to limit him in the NFL?
No, I really don't at all. I mean, yeah, his long speed isn't great. Okay. Like, I'm not going to be too pressed if my slot receiver can't go 60 yards downfield and all out go route. But his short, because his short athleticism and his short area quickness is so good. He's so twitchy, so explosive that he makes up for it. And he can win in that way. So, yeah, it's not as big of a deal as for that. He's got great hands. Like, if you're talking about like a Brennan Thompson kind of receiver, where all he has is speed and he can't really do as much route running, he doesn't have the best hands, then yeah, it's a lot more concerning. But if you're Makai Lemon and you are so much more developed, have good route running, have good hands, I don't think it's as big of a deal if you're not a straight line burner.
Okay, and Hank, Lemon was your wide receiver one, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'll just say for Lemon, I'm not worried at all. My comp for him is Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Amon-Ra ran a 4.5. So I think that's probably about where Lemon would run if he ran the 40. Maybe he'll do it at his pro day, but I just don't see any problem. If you're going to be in the slot and you're just going to win, then you're just going to win. You're going to produce and you're going to be on a winning team in a winning situation. Absolutely not worried about Makai Lemon's athleticism at all.
Okay, and then Jordan, what is your overall draft prognosis for Makai Lemon?
I think Makai Lemon is getting to the point where, again, we wait so long and we talk about these prospects for so long that by the time January comes around and everybody has them top on their board, that we get a little tired and we want the clicks. So we kind of start, nitpicking and poking holes in their abilities. And I just don't think when you look at the combine, and I know people had some questions about his interviews at the combine, but again, the kid's never had any issues in his 3 years at college before this. So I don't think he had any issues. I think he was just nervous. I think this is the biggest moment of his life, and he's going into this thing and he wants to impress. So, and somebody posted, I can't remember who it was. Somebody posted that right before, like he had the look in his eye where he was just like staring somebody down. Right before that, somebody said, "Do you think your height at the next level is going to be an issue?" And I guess he kind of took it personal, so he was just thrown off by that because that's his first question. Is like, "Hey, you're smaller than we thought. Like, is that going to be an issue?" No, I think he's a superb receiver. I think he he's one of the better contested. I know we talked about with Jordan Tyson how he attacks the ball at the catch point. I think Mekhi Lemon might be the best at that trait in this draft, and he's smaller. I think he's still measured in at 5'10", 5'10", 5'11", but the fact that he's able to do that at that size, and he's able to go across the middle with, I think he's with reckless abandon at sometimes, because he's, like you said, he reminds me of Steve Smith in that aspect, where he's so tenacious. So yeah, I don't think he's going to be limited by his athletic abilities. I don't think he's going to be limited by his size. I think he's just one of those guys that's, as the closer we get to the draft, people are starting to poke holes where they shouldn't be.
Right. You can't always believe everything you hear from
smoke screen.
NFL people at this time of year.
I'm fully buying in on this. Yeah.
Tedder McMillan last year was like, oh, he doesn't like football.
Some team just wants him to drop. Like, the Panthers did that, they're genius for getting T-Mac there, but it's I don't think it's real.
Ridiculous.
Okay, so Drew, I remember when we were podcasting wide receivers many weeks ago, you were saying you're not as high on Carnell Tate as everybody else. Like, as in, you weren't high enough on Tate to pick him at 8 for the Saints, right? Like when we were doing some Saints mock drafts. Where are you on Carnell Tate right now? Do you think he's in play for the Saints at 8, or in your eyes, not really?
We're mending that relationship. We're getting better. I mean, back then, people were talking about him as like the 2nd overall pick and as their clear-cut wide receiver 1 and everything. And I was just pumping the brakes. I said, he's a great player, but I'm not there yet. Going back, I watched a couple more games of his film. And I'm going to specifically talk about him at 8 because that's what I can talk about the most. Is I really realized, and looking at the roster, how good of a fit he would be in New Orleans. So my thoughts have definitely begun to change on him. He's still my wide receiver 4. There's still 3 others that I would rather have, but I would not be mad with the selection at 8 whatsoever. I think he's a great prospect. He still doesn't, I mean, I still worry about him being the sole number 1 wide receiver in an offense, but that isn't a deal breaker. I mean, for the Saints, you have Chris Olave. Him and Olave would be one of the best duos in the league, I think. The Ohio State connection, they'd complement each other so well. So I don't think that's quite as big of a deal breaker. He's just such a smart player. He's got good athleticism. His 40 time, I don't care. Like, the 40 times, yeah, they're nice to see a number. Yeah, they're important, I guess. But, I mean, it's not as big of a deal for me. I'm not gonna hurt his stock with it too much, but I do like Carnell Tate a lot more. Still not bullish, but I'm a fan.
Okay, and then Hank, for you, where are you on Tate right now?
Yeah, so Tate's my wide receiver 3. I've really come around to him. The one thing I wanted to ask, because I basically agree with, like, he's a great deep threat, but he's also a great separator. So when I was today, I went through and I wanted to get as many comps down as I could. So I was watching him, and I feel like he's a better separator than George Pickens, which a lot of people have been labeling him as. And I didn't want to do Nico Collins because I want to be different. So I put down a guy that isn't, I feel like, consensus. I put down Devonta Smith for just strictly play style. And of course, size-wise, Devonta Smith is 170. Carnell Tate's, I think, 191. But the way that they play, I think, is super similar. And I think that the role that they'll have in the NFL, I think, is pretty similar. Devonta Smith wins down the field. He's able to go up and get the football. I think Carnell Tate does a better job at it, but I think that Devonta Smith is very slept on in that aspect. They're both smooth movers. They both have a great mindset on the field. I think that it's a solid comp. It's a different comp, but it's just size-wise, it's very weird. So I didn't know if you two want to like weigh in on that and if you can see it at all, because I was asking around to a few people.
When I first heard it, I was like thinking about it. And I'm like, outside of the weight, I actually do really like that comp because they're both very smart players, know how to find the open spot. As you said, they're so smooth. Yeah, I do really like that as a comp, barring the weight.
Yeah, I think that actually makes, because I've struggled with the comp for Tate. I've heard a lot of people say T. Higgins, and I don't see T with him. I think, you just see a tall receiver that can attack the ball downfield, and it's like, it's T. Higgins. All right, let's use some different comps there. But yeah, I do agree that Devonta Smith definitely makes sense. He's a guy that coming out of college, the weight was an issue with him, and he's just been phenomenal. So yeah, I think I can see that with Tate.
We're labeling everyone as T. Higgins now.
Yeah,
That's our third comp for him. Every player is T. Higgins.
every player. If he's 6'3" and big, he's T. Higgins.
T. Higgins.
And if you're now the key there that I like to point out too is that means you're drafting a starter. You're not drafting an all-pro.
Yeah.
And it's okay to draft starters, everybody. Like you should.
Well, if Devonta was a 1 on his own team, I think he could kind of push that territory. That's a different discussion.
Next year's going to be an interesting year.
I was going to say with the trade talks with AJ Brown, I think we're probably going to see it. So
So okay, so we've gone around on Tate, we've gone around on Lemon. So Jordan, were you the one that had Omar Cooper Jr. in your top 5?
Yeah.
Okay, so I am here for Omar Cooper Jr. propaganda. How would you use him in an NFL offense, and what are your thoughts on Omar Cooper Jr.?
I would use him because my comp for him is Jarvis Landry. It's not. I don't think he's as. No, actually, yes, I do. I think he's just like Jarvis Landry. He's a little bit faster. The 4.43 was a little bit surprising for me, but it makes sense because he is a yak king. So for me, it was watching the tape for him. I know. Coming into the season, I had Surratt as the number 1 wide receiver on that team, and that quickly changed. I think for me, the turning point for me was the Penn State game. The catch that he was able to make in the back of the end zone was ridiculous. I don't think I've seen a better catch this year than that one. So for me, just honing in on him and watching that, and just over the course of the year, just never getting tired of watching him catch the ball and just find ways to create yards after the catch. I think he was a great safety blanket for Mendoza. So I think it's just at the next level. I think he starts probably around 25, 26 is, his ceiling for me. I could see him falling to the second round, but also, slipping into the late first.
How would you use him in an NFL offense?
I'd probably line him up. I'd probably line him in the slot. That's just me. I think he obviously can play out wide, but I would prefer him in the slot just because, like you say, you get him in the slot and go up against zone, and he can find different areas to win in the zone. Don't match him up with a linebacker; he's going to win that. If you line him up against a smaller nickel, he's probably going to win that. Just don't line him up against Nick Emmanwori, and I think he'll be fine.
So, Drew, who's another receiver in your top 5 that we haven't spoke about yet?
I had Chris Bell, Louisville's wide receiver. I mean, he's just fun. Like, there's no way around it. He's a wide receiver in a running back's body. Mm-hmm. If he didn't tear his ACL at the end of the season, we'd be talking about a round 1 wide receiver, I think pretty consensusly. And we did get some good news about that at the Combine. He said he would be ready for training camp. Now, do I totally believe that yet? I don't know. I mean, they could be saying that, try to boost his draft stock. I'm not 100% buying in on it yet, but even an estimated timetable around there would be huge for him. So, I mean, he's just fun to watch. Explosive after the catch. He has got another gear that you rarely see in a receiver. It would have been extremely interesting to see what his 40-10 would have been, because it would be very fast. He just get him the ball in space, let him go. You saw that against Miami. The reason Louisville won that game was because Chris Bell said, "Give me that ball," and he took off. There was no guarding him over the middle of the field, and it was just impressive to see. He's so physical. He wants to hit people. He will go out of his way. There was a play, I forget what game it was. He had a wide open lane to the touchdown, and there was a safety towards the middle of the field. Instead of going to the corner and scoring, he went right into the safety and ran him over. And I just love to see that mentality in my wide receiver. I don't think he's an amazing route runner. He's good. He's definitely a lot better than the Malachi Corley's or people we've seen in recent years that have kind of fit this role. But I'm a big fan of Chris Bell. Wow, Tegan's on the brain. But yeah, he's an X receiver. I could see him going to Z, but I think he'll be an X. And yeah, my top 5 wide receiver for me. I still think he's worthy of being a first round pick. Now, would I take him there? I don't know. I think I'd be more comfortable with him in the second right now, but he's a great talent and is worthy of it.
Okay. Hank, is there a receiver in your top 5 that we have not spoke about yet?
No, we covered them all, but I want to touch on the 2 we just talked about.
Go for it.
So I have 8 first round grades at wide receiver. I think this class is sick. And I only have like 22 2 total first round grades. So it takes up more than a third of my first round grades. And Omar Cooper's in there. And I really like Cooper. I ended up comping him to Curtis Samuel, but like prime Curtis Samuel, not like now Curtis Samuel, like 2020 Curtis Samuel is what I'm thinking.
When he had the
'Cause-
1,000-yard season.
Yeah. And I think that's mostly because Curtis Samuel ran a 4.31, Cooper ran a 4.41, but Cooper on film looks like more of a 4.3 player than he did at the running a 40. The big thing for me with Cooper is I just say he's a running back at wide receiver. His ability after the catch, he has power, he has elusiveness, he has speed, and what he can create is very positive. And then for Chris Bell, I comped him to Deebo Samuel. I think he has a higher ceiling than Omar Cooper, but he's going to have to show that he still has it after the ACL. Bell, my saying with him always has been if David Ojabo can go at 45, tearing his Achilles at his pro day, Chris Bell can go in the first round, tearing his ACL in December. So I think there's still a good chance that a team like Seattle, who can afford to let him rehab if he's not ready for the start of the season, pair him up with JSN, then all of a sudden, if Chris Bell's the same player, you have a very good future wide receiver 2 next to one of the best in the league. I think Chris Bell's a stud. He had a first round grade for me until the ACL tear. So I'm excited to see where he goes. And I think there's a small chance he can go round 1, but I don't think he makes it out of the top 50.
Both of those receivers would be so fun in San Francisco.
Mhm.
I mean, I feel like if you got a fun offensive player, Kenyon City can go on this as well, but just send him to Kyle Shanahan and they'll do well. Like there's so many players I want to see there.
Yeah,
I agree.
So Jordan, who are your wide receivers 6 through 10?
So 6 through 10, I have Casey Concepcion is number 6 for me. And then I have Chris Brazel out of Tennessee is my wide receiver 7. I have Skylar Bell, the other Bell, Antonio Williams, and then Chris Bell.
Okay. And then Drew, who are your wide receivers 6 through 10?
I have Jeremy Bernard at wide receiver 6, Casey Concepcion at wide receiver 7. Probably my biggest shock on my list is Lewis Bond from Boston College at my wide receiver 8. I love him. Shout out Hank. Ted Hurst as my wide receiver 9, and then Antonio Williams at 10.
Okay, and then Hank, who are your 6 through 10? I know that you covered a couple of them, but you can repeat them.
Yeah, I have Antonio Williams at 6. I have Omar Cooper Jr. at wide receiver 7. Casey Concepcion at wide receiver 8, and that's all the first round grades. Then Chris Bell at 9 and Chris Brazel at 10.
Okay. So I heard a lot of names in common. Let's go around the horn on Casey Concepcion. He was in, I believe all 3 of you have him in your top 10. So Hank, go ahead.
Yeah, so Casey is really, like, shockingly probably going to be a boundary guy in the NFL at 5'11", 190, because the way that he separates on the boundary, especially against press coverage, is kind of shocking. It's very rare that you find a guy who's, that size that can separate so easily against press coverage, but he definitely has the chops to do it. I was a little bit skeptic coming into the year about him transferring to Texas A&M. I was thinking like, well, he just had this awful year at NC State, and I was going to go play with Marcel Reed, and I really don't like Marcel Reed. So I was just like, it felt more like a money move than it did an actual football move, which I can't blame him. He probably got paid millions of dollars to play there. But what he was able to do on film was great. He won deep. He had yak. He had a great short game. He's undersized. So you don't really care about his blocking, although it's not great. Personally, I see him in the NFL kind of playing a Ladd McConkey role. I think that's kind of what he's going to play. I think he'll win down the field more than McConkey's asked to do. I think McConkey can win down the field if he's asked to do it. I think Casey will be asked to do it more often. But I think that's the kind of role he's going to get in the NFL. It's just kind of this guy, consistent guy, whether it's in the slot or on the outside, he can do both. Because McConkey was filling on the outside with all the Chargers injuries this year and last. So that's who I think Casey can be. I really like him. He just has to shore up the hands. The drops are a big problem. I think it was near 10% was his drop rate this season. So there's concentration drops, and there's also just really bad drops. So there's just a few kind of easy things that needs to clean up before he becomes this, I would say, plus wide receiver 2, arguably wide receiver 1. But I think he's a very high-end wide receiver 2 at his peak.
Okay, Jordan, where are you on Casey Concepcion right now?
So my wide receiver 6 with KC. I think the drops were my biggest question with him. Right. So how does he fix that? Because like you said, he wins downfield. He's very, very quick off the line of scrimmage. He's stronger than I expected. I watched him for his first 2 years at NC State. I didn't think he was as strong, but seeing him this year at Texas A&M, I think that was an area where he definitely improved. his game. So yeah, I have a round 2 grade on KC. I think he provides some versatility as far as a punt returner and a kick returner as well. So I think teams are going to fall in love with that. But like you said, the drops, I don't think he's a great blocker. He's a little bit small, but he can win downfield with probably anybody else in this class. So I really like him in that area.
So, Drew, how would you use Casey Concepcion in an NFL offense?
If you asked me last year, I would say he's a gadget player, but he made tremendous strides this year at Texas A&M that I feel like you can put him at wide receiver. I think he's more of a slot. Hank said outside receiver. I can see him playing some of the X, but I just with his size and all that, I see him playing more in the slot. But he's going to be someone who can impact on every down. He's going to be a special teams contributor. He's going to be amazing in the locker room. He's a great leader. So he's someone that any offense would be lucky to have, and that can be used in a variety of different ways.
Okay. And then another receiver, I'm trying to remember now who all of the 5 were. All 3 of you had Antonio Williams in your top 10, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, Hank, why don't you discuss Antonio Williams? Is he slot? Is he boundary? Can he win on the outside? Gadget player? What do you think of Antonio Williams?
Yeah, so Antonio Williams is my wide receiver 6. I think, again, I'm one of the higher people on him in probably the whole NFL draft space. He's top 20 on my board. I just think he's a consistent slot option. That's just going to consistent's the word to use. He's not going to wow you with speed. His route running's good. It's not great, but he just wins and he's going to be consistent. He's going to get those 10 to 12-yard gains that teams need at the next level. He's going to convert those 3rd and shorts by running a quick stop route, quick curl route, a quick in. There's a lot of things that Antonio Williams can bring to an NFL offense. I think, of course, everyone's going to talk about the injuries and can he be available for that long? I think realistically, he's going to go day 2, whether that's round 2, round 3, I don't know. And when you're picking there, and if you're a winning team, once you get outside the top 50 to 75, that's where I become more open to the idea of taking a guy who may deal with some injury history or an older guy that would be a 1 contract player. So that's where I think Antonio Williams will go realistically, but I think he's a stud player. In my opinion, he's kind of like Christian Kirk. And a lot of people laughed at Christian Kirk when he got that major extension for the Jags. No one really expected it, but he was a consistent wide receiver for the Jags and the Cardinals for a while. And when he was asked to play for the Texans this year, he wasn't bad. So, I mean, that's what kind of what I see with Antonio Williams. I think you're getting a good, consistent slot option. Definitely not on the boundary, though. I think his best work's going to come from the slot, especially with the athletic limitations he has. So put him in the slot. Let him be consistent. I think like Kansas City in round 2 would be very good for him because they have the whole Rashee Rice problem now, and Xavier Worthy's had some health concerns. So they probably need to add some depth there, and I think Antonio Williams would be a good addition to their roster.
Okay, Jordan, where are you on Antonio Williams?
Yeah, so he's my wide receiver. I think it's 8, I believe. So I have late round 2 grade, early round 3, anywhere in between that for him. I think he got overshadowed a little bit because of the injuries at Clemson and also the 2 wide receivers that he was playing behind there. But, after, looking at his freshman year at Clemson, I thought he was probably one of the better athletes on the field, and that was, including all the players that Clemson had on their defense side of the ball too. So I think he's going to be a great yak option in the league. Put him in the slot, just let him work. I think he finds areas with his wiggle. I think that's, for me, like you said, Christian Kirk. I like that comp. Another comp that I found that really fit me was Tyler Lockett. And I like the Tyler Lockett comp a little bit with him too, because he is, like I said, his wiggle is one of my favorite things about him. You get him the ball and he can take that 5-yard slant and he can turn it into a home run at any point. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of Antonio Williams. I think the injuries just, brought him down a little bit, but going into his sophomore year, I had a 1st-round grade on him. So,
yeah, and he was a favorite round 1 mocked wide receiver over the summer. Drew, where do you think like Antonio Williams falls? Is he round 2, round 3, or do you have him higher?
Yeah, I've got a round 2 grade on him. I mean, he's just a quarterback's best friend. It can be put as simply as that. He's so good when a quarterback's under duress at finding an open spot in the zone and just being available, which is such an underrated thing for an NFL offense that every quarterback can use. So I really like Antonio Williams. Truthfully, I want him and Cade Klubnik to get drafted to the same team Like get him to the Steelers or something like that, where they continue to grow their chemistry and just be available. But no, I think Antonio Williams is a day 2 pick or a second round pick even.
Okay. Okay, Hank, pick any other receiver in your top 10. Feel free to share everybody what you like about them.
Yeah, so I'll just jump to Chris Brazel because this was a guy that I was not high on probably like 2 months ago because of the effort that you saw on tape, and that like really turned me off of him. But after he gave some interviews and he was talking about like that's what they asked me to do because the next play I had to run 40 yards down the field because the Tennessee system is weird. I'm like, okay, let me go watch the Tulane tape, and on the Tulane tape he's just fine. So I think there's still blocking concerns, but I don't think it's a mentality thing. I think he's just doing what he's asked to do at an extreme level. I think he could have tried a bit harder, but I also think that he was kind of just playing into what coach was telling him to do. But Brazel's a guy for 6'4", 200. He shouldn't be able to separate as easy as he does. He's just a smooth, fluid mover. And if you watch the Georgia game, you're going to think he's one of like the best players in the draft because he was electric that Georgia game. My comp that I came up for him was another weird one. I kind of see like a prime Adam Thielen with him in a way. I think being that number 2, number 3 on the Vikings was Adam Thielen's main role, and he was the one before, or kind of the one, Diggs, him, and then him and Jettas. So I think that's kind of Brazel's role. Like that's his peak upside. Of course, Brazel is 6'4", Adam Thielen 6'2", but other than that, I think they both are going to win probably in the same areas. They're both smooth movers. I think Thielen's going to work more underneath because Brazel can just go up and get the football at his height, but I also think Brazel needs to be more physical when going up and getting the football. So kind of just an odd comp there, but I think Brazel's going to be a very good wide receiver 2 or 3 in the league. He's just going to be a guy who's going to be an oddball for NFL defenses to scheme up against because he's 6'4", 200 pounds, and he separates like he's 5'11", 190. So he's just going to be a consistent winner on the outside in the NFL.
Okay, and then Jordan, Chris Brazel was in your top 10 as well, right?
Yeah, I think for me, I had the stereotype with, these Tennessee wide receivers was like, oh, here we go, another one of these guys. And then you watch the tape and he just moves differently. He's not Dante Thornton, he's not Jalen Hyatt. He just moves differently. One of the plays that I really enjoyed watching him on film, he's running, a go route and he just stops on a dime. And like you said, being 6'4", 200 plus, being able to stop like that and just immediately just create that separation against the cornerback was very impressive for me. So I coming into watching his film was, I had to put the Tennessee helmet to the side and just, understand that he was somebody that I was going to have to learn to like. And I did. I learned to like him a lot. So I think he's a lot different than those guys. And like Hank said, with the Tennessee offense, you do see those plays where he takes off and it's like, okay, like why is that? And then, like I said in the interview, so yeah, I think he's a guy that can definitely win on the outside. He can go up and get it. And I think he's just going to be a really good separator at the next level.
So is it like learning to like your vegetables?
A little bit with Tennessee because their offense is so weird. I think they're a very gimmicky offense, and I don't want to offend any Tennessee fans watching, but Hubble does a great job, getting them to produce. But at the same time, we've seen it when they get to the NFL, it's just not the same.
If our viewers haven't been offended by one of our podcasts yet, they haven't watched enough of our podcasts. It's okay, but. Drew, I don't remember if Brazel was in your top 10, but I know that when you and I podcasted some mock drafts, that was a player that you were a little bit south on when we did your Saints mock drafts. Have you warmed up on Brazel at all, or do you want to talk about a different receiver?
No, I really haven't. He's my wide receiver 17, I believe. It's not even that he's a Tennessee receiver. Like, I've gotten it out of my mind. It's just that I'm not the biggest fan of his game. I can't deny the speed. I can't deny the explosiveness at his size, and that it's so impressive. And I do really like that about him. But there's the blocking concerns. The effort thing's fine, but there are sometimes in a downfield block where he doesn't show any effort. And I get in the Tennessee scheme, but if there's a wide open receiver, you got a good open lane for a big, deep play, and you just don't block, that's going to be a little bit of a problem with me. So a little bit nervous about that. And I'm just not sold on his hands. People say that he's a great contested catch threat, and I just personally don't see it. In the Georgia game, he had a couple of really good catches. I'll give him that. But he just struggles in contested catch situations. He's 41% on the year. And for someone that size, I would expect him to get a lot more. I just don't think he's going to be able to win like that at the NFL. I think he's going to struggle when he gets physical, and that's going to be tough. Additionally, he was arrested in 2025 for speeding with a suspended license after not appearing in court the prior year. So that's something I'm sure he's going to get asked about a lot. So I like a lot of the traits with Brazel, but I just can't be sold on him quite yet.
Okay, so Drew, is there another receiver in your top 10 that you would like to talk about?
I'll gladly start some Lewis Bond propaganda. I mean, Lewis Bond, wide receiver out of Boston College, a major snub from the combine. To be honest, I don't know how he didn't get an invite, but he's 5'11", 190 pounds. He performed well at the Senior Bowl. That's kind of when I first got eyes on him, was because he was a big Senior Bowl kind of guy I was looking at. But he is just so agile, extremely twitchy. He's got amazing short area quickness, and it just shows when he's playing. He plays extremely, and it's very tough for a defender to stay with him. He's got reliable hands. He can bring in off body catches. He's only got a 4.3% drop rate this year. Rapid accelerator. He's great after the catch. He's pretty slippery and is tough to bring down. And then he is such a high IQ player. I mean, let's just to put it bluntly, if there's any Boston College fans here, they're probably really high on me right now. Sorry to offend you, but everything on that offense was dysfunctional outside of him. Yet he was still such a good piece for their quarterback, and he was just constantly open for him. And I think without him, that offense would have gone from pitiful to like the worst in college football by far. So I think he was so big in that. I'm big on receivers that are quarterback's best friend. Now, there are some concerns with him. He doesn't have top end speed, and he can struggle with physicality. If the refs let them play, he's just not going to be as open. But I just see him translating well to the NFL. I see him being able to contribute pretty early to an NFL team and just being a reliable option. I don't think he'll ever be 1,000, 1,500-yard receiver. I don't think he'll ever be the number one in an offense. But he's going to be a really good number two for a really long time and be someone that a franchise is going to be glad they took.
Okay. Hank, another receiver in your top 10 that you'd like to talk about?
I think we've covered all mine, the top 10.
Oh, look at that. Okay, go ahead. You can go to your number 11. Like
number 11.
We got to give the audience what they came to hear, right?
Yeah, so we can talk about Kendrick Law out of Kentucky. That's my 11. Really gadgety player, like very gadgety. Rarely lined up as a true wide receiver. I think, honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if he spent more time in the backfield than he did an actual wide receiver. But he's listed as a wide receiver. He'll go as a wide receiver. And when he was asked to play real wide receiver, I thought he was pretty impressive. I thought he could attack the middle of the field pretty well. I thought he could stack DBs. There's a lot that he can do. I think his 40 time was pretty underwhelming. I was expecting a bit faster, but what he plays on tape is a lot better than I think what he ran. And I think if he can somehow develop into a true wide receiver, he's going to be a great threat for an NFL team. I asked about a comp for him earlier in the chat, the group chat that we're in, and someone brought up Marvin Mims, and I think that's going to be my final comp for him. I really do like the Marvin Mims comp. Again, another slot guy who's kind of gadgety, kick returner, punt returner, versatility. So that's what I'm going to end up with him. 5'10", 209 with the athleticism that he has is kind of rare. But again, it's just, is he going to be able to be a true wide receiver, or is he just this gadgety system guy? I would love for him to be able to figure out a wide receiver, but he's going to have a lot of learning curves, especially when it comes to getting physical and playing through press and understanding, how to break down zone coverages. So he has a long way to go, but there's a lot to like with Kendrick Law, in my opinion.
It sounds like a Kyle Shanahan player.
Probably.
Jordan, another wide receiver in your top 10 that you would like to talk about?
I think for me, it's probably my favorite wide receiver in this whole draft, Skylar Bell. Out of UConn. I watched him when Duke played UConn this year. That was my first time watching him. And I was just impressed. His production wasn't the best that day. He came in leading the nation in receiving yards at that point in time. But we had Chandler Rivers on him. So the production wasn't the best, but just seeing him able to, stack Chandler, get open across the middle of the field. He fills those voids that are there in zone, and Duke was a very heavy zone team this year. So he was exceptional, and I followed him after that. Measured in at like 6 foot by 190 at the combine. Ran a 4.4, had a 40-inch vert. So for me, it was like, does the numbers match the tape? And they did. So that was really impressive for me. My comp for him is Jaden Reed, somebody that can play. He can play outside. He can play in the slot. He's going to win, and he makes the catches that you expect him to make, if that makes sense. For me, it's like he's one of those guys that if a ball's coming, he doesn't take his eyes off the ball looking to run upfield. And that was one of the things, even going back to his Wisconsin tape, that I really noticed with him. So it was really, that matters to me, being a Panthers fan, watching Xavier Legette. I like seeing guys catch the ball. So,
got it. You want a wide receiver to catch the ball?
Yes.
Okay. It sounds like Legette may have the Keon Coleman syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I have Hank. I'm glad I could get a chuckle out of you. So Hank, Skylar Bell, day 2 or day 3 for you?
I think he ends up going really early, round 4 in the draft. I think that's probably his realistic landing spot. Older prospect. I think he's 24. I want to say
he'll be 24 in like September, I think.
Yeah, so 24 about when the season starts. So there's a chance he's this a one contract kind of receiver before he starts jumping around the league. I don't think he's out of the league in 4 years, but a team's really going to get 4 year good years out of Skylar Bell, and I think early round 4 is when you're going to feel comfortable taking him. I think he's a sick player, and I think he's a sick player on day 3, really early day 3, and I wouldn't be shocked if he went day 2. He got a great combine, so I'm a big fan of Skylar Bell.
And then Drew, how about you? Skylar Bell, day 2, day 3?
I think he's late day 2. Is kind of where I have him graded.
Okay. And Hank, any other? You were already at wide receiver 12 for you. So
I got my 6 that hasn't been covered.
Oh, go for it, Drew. Go for it.
My wide receiver 6, Jordan said he wanted someone who can catch the ball. I offer you Jeremy Bernard, a wide receiver from Alabama. 1.6 drop percentage this year. He doesn't let anything really go through his hands. My favorite thing about Bernard is just how savvy and nuanced of a route runner he is. He knows when to use tempo well. He knows when he has to throttle down and find it. Yeah, he knows when to sit. He's such a high IQ player, and that's exactly what I want in my offense. He's another guy. I don't think he'll ever be a number 1, 1,500-yard first-team All-Pro receiver, but he's going to be a very, very good kind of receiver. Hank said this guy earlier, but he kind of reminds me of someone who will play the Adam Thielen role, someone who will be the Robin. He will be the dynamic duo that makes someone else thrive. He just got great focus through the catch. It was against Oklahoma in the playoffs, where he made an outstanding catch over the defender's helmet, brought it in. He's just so concentrated, can make people miss after the catch. Yeah, he's not an explosive athlete. I don't think he's got amazing stop/start ability, but he's just very impressive and really everything he does and just finds a way to get open.
Okay. And Jeremy Bernard, Owen, coming out of the summer, said that was a first-round wide receiver. Mm-hmm. Owens dropped him to early round 2 now, but Jeremy Bernard has definitely been getting a lot of love on this channel since May. So I also think Jeremy Bernard would be a fun Kyle Shanahan wide receiver.
Yeah.
I also think that Jeremy Bernard, he had really good, his 10-yard split was quite good at the combine, if memory serves me correctly. Right. So Hank, who's your wide receiver 12? We can just go ahead and start going to the next guys on our boards. We've got a few more minutes.
Yeah, I'll just touch on Jerry Bernard because he was on Washington during the greatest college football season of my life when they won the Sugar Bowl and sadly lost to Michigan. When he had, I think it was like 8 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown against Arizona after transferring in from Michigan State, I was like, this guy's going to save this wide receiver room because we were losing Odunze, Polk, McMillan. They were all going to the league. So I was like, who's going to be next? I thought it was going to be Jeremy Bernard. I thought he was going to be the stud wide receiver. And he transfers with DeBoer to Alabama. And I can't blame him. He probably got paid handsomely to go there. And there was no reason to stick around because Washington is now rebuilding and now they're retooling and it's a whole mess over there now. But I really like Bernard. He's kind of just slipped down my rankings. He's maintained the same grade for me throughout this whole process, but because I've just watched more guys, he's kind of slipped. He would technically be my 12, but I can just jump to my 13. My 13 is Dejon Stribling out of Ole Miss. I think this is a big sleeper in the NFL draft. Guy that I have day 2 with a round 3 grade. I think just his ability to track the ball in the air and his ability to also just win and separate is going to be sought upon when he's 6'2", 200 pounds, I think. And he's physical when blocking. He's physical when going through coverage. He has a good release package for the player that he is, and he can line up anywhere. I think he'd be a power slot. He can play X if he needs to fill in. I think his primary position is going to be at the Z, though. And I just think, there's the cons for him. He could have sharper, cleaner route cuts, breaks at the stem, and also the long speed is not great. But he's just a wide receiver who's going to be able to line up anywhere and win throughout a game. He's not going to win every rep. He's not going to win all the time. But throughout a game, he can get open, enough times to make an impact. And I think eventually he's going to be a high-end wide receiver 3, possibly wide receiver 2 for an NFL team.
So absolutely love that. So Stribling. So there's a draft professor story behind him. So we had this huge wide receiver watch list. It must have been 60 or 80 players. And that list was given to 2 people. They had, each of them, I think, had podcasts with Draft Professor One. One was Tell Holland, the other was Peter Quinn. And they each independently watched like all 80 guys in the list. And we were talking about, okay, so, who's really high? And I said, okay, so who's the sleeper? They both independently came up with Dejon Stribling. And this was over the summer, right? Because he was, if memory serves me correctly, he was Oklahoma State. This was his only year at Ole Miss, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and from what Owen has said, he looked better at Oklahoma State than he did at Ole Miss. But you can't ignore what he did at Oklahoma State. Like, that's a receiver that NFL teams are going to be able to use.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so love the Stribling call out. Jordan, any other receiver in your top 10 that you would like to talk about?
He's not in my top 10, but Tyron Montgomery, another combine snub, had a really good Senior Bowl. I think that's when, he was announced to the world in a way at the Senior Bowl. A guy with a basketball background, was late to football, but he's able to climb the ladder really well at 5'11", 190. Was really shocking. Like seeing him going up and getting the ball, kind of like he does going up and getting a rebound. So it was really impressive watching him at the Senior Bowl. I wasn't there, but I was able to get the videos. And I think he just won all his one-on-one routes. And again, the one-on-one routes do favor the wide receivers a little bit, but the fact that he was able to do it in multiple different ways was really impressive to me for a small school guy going up against quality opponents. So that was one thing that really stuck out to me. I think somebody in the comments mentioned Eric McAllister.
Yep.
We want to talk about him. I know his legal issues are a big thing right now, and that's probably why he's falling a little bit. But he's an amazing athlete. If you're just looking at on the field production, 6'3", 215, he's a sub 4'4" guy. He's just one of those guys that you expect him to be a good football player, and it shows, right? I think just the biggest knock on him is his legal troubles right now, and what teams are going to view that, how teams are going to view that.
Yeah, I think it's not like small legal issues either. It's assault with a deadly weapon and making a terroristic threat. So I mean, especially what just happened with James Pierce Jr. Yeah. Now, nobody. I haven't heard anyone call Eric McAllister a lunatic or anything like that, because that's what was coming out of Tennessee. But it's definitely going to be looked on like intensely by NFL teams.
Yeah. I don't think he gets drafted.
I think if he gets drafted, it's very late day 3. But he'll make a practice squad at minimum. He'll be there over the summer, and he'll probably make a 53-man roster because the tape is very good. It's very good. But the legal issues, like Jordan said, it's very much a red flag.
Okay. So I love this question. And I always take this to me, when I look at the draft in fantasy, I say there's 2 ways to look at it. Like, there's certain players, and probably a lot of the ones we talked about in this podcast, where you're probably going to draft them in fantasy no matter what. But like, for example, I'm more likely to draft Stribling in fantasy than I am Chris Brazel. Right? Kind of thing. But then the opposite of that is which teams. So whichever wide receiver Buffalo drafts, draft him in fantasy. Whichever wide receiver is drafted by the Saints, I would take in fantasy. Whichever wide receiver is drafted by the Chiefs, I would take in fantasy, because those teams need a wide receiver. So there's going to be volume for those players. But
Browns.
Yeah, so Jordan, what are your thoughts on the fantasy wide receiver landscape?
Yeah, I think it like you said, it depends on the team, right? For me, I know last year when Tedrow McMillan was drafted by the Panthers, regardless of whoever it was drafted by the Panthers at wide receiver, I knew I was going to take them because you're coming off a year where Adam Thielen is your number one. Well, guess what? He got traded back to Minnesota, right? So now you're looking at, okay, who's the wide receiver one in that room? So I'm going to take them. So to your point, whoever, if the Titans take a wide receiver in round one, probably going to take him. If the Browns take a wide receiver in round one, probably going to take him, regardless of who it is, just because I know they're the target and the volume share they're going to get. So, yeah, I look at it more so as what team and not really the prospect.
Yeah, and my only exceptions to that, I think, is that if it's Brazel, like if it's Brazel to the Browns, I'm going to punt that and go somewhere else. So one of my fantasy teams is really bad. But I actually have first-round picks this year. So I think I have 4 first-round picks, including the second overall in a 14-team league. So I did a really good job at running back last year off the waiver wire. Like, I got Kyle Monanganai off the waiver wire after the draft. Like, in a 14-team, 3-round draft, Monanganai didn't get drafted. So I went and grabbed him off the waiver wire and stuff. So my running back room is good. So with pick number 2, for me, it's either Mendoza or one of the wide receivers, and it will probably be Carnell Tate. So it's either Mendoza or Tate for me at 2. I'm probably not taking Love, but maybe that's why I'm a bad fantasy player. Drew.
Well, Love's going number 1. You don't have to worry about that.
So you think I'll be able to get Mendoza at 2?
If there's no way Love doesn't go first overall in my mind.
I think he should go number 1.
And if you don't, I would still grab him no matter what. I would rather have Love.
Confidence. I didn't think I was going to have a chance to get Mendoza.
No, I think Love in fantasy drafts. I think running back is, at least that's what I always look for when going in fantasy. And not to say anything, but my fantasy teams have won 3 years straight. So I do like going running back first. And I think if Love falls, I don't think there's really a chance.
I just don't want Jeremiah Love to go to the Saints. That absolutely.
Bro, we like that. I mean, Tyler Shuck, Jeremiah Love, Chris Olave, that's a great trio.
Kellen Moore, Jermaine Johnson, yes.
Devin Neal, don't forget about him. That's my boy.
So all of you that are watching in the chat, thank you. Next week, we're doing wide receivers again, but we're not going to talk about any of the wide receivers from this show. So we're going to go deep into everybody's board, and they're just going to start talking about the guys they like wherever they are on their board. So this should be a lot of fun. Hank, you want to let everybody know about your Twitter and the draft content and any of your podcasting with Broshmo again or anybody else?
Yeah, so it'll be Hank Knows Ball on Twitter and Substack, just NFL draft content. Whenever I put something out, I'm always working on it. So you can always send a DM and ask a question if you care to. But I'm gonna eventually, hopefully over spring break, I'll get at least 2 articles out. I don't know. I have a long drive for a trip I'm going on, but I should have some downtime at night. And yeah, so just do that. And if you want to talk ball, I'm always down to talk ball.
Cool. Drew.
Yeah, find me on X at Drew M. Collings. I'm there. I post often. Posted today about Cyrus Allen, a quick cut up of some of the games I watched of him. So I'm pretty active over there. You can find my writing at Who Dat Dish. I write for the Saints. I write at least an article a day for there. Roundtable Sports, I cover the draft for a couple of teams for them, for the Saints, Vikings, Texans, Chargers, 49ers. So if you're a fan of any of those teams, I'll be writing articles over them. Send me some ideas if you need, because I'll always take those. And I have a Saints podcast called The Dome Discussions that I'm on, and I'll be here twice a week to talk about some draft stuff.
Jordan.
Yeah, Jordan Hunt. I'm Panthers Pulse on Twitter or X. Just big Panthers fan. Down to talk Panthers sports and not just Panthers sports, just football in general. Whether it's college or the NFL. I have daily discussions, whether it's in group chats or on Twitter in regards to football. Whether it's talking about a rival, because as much as having those rivals, you can still appreciate when one of your rivals is building a good team. I've watched it with the Buccaneers. I'm watching it currently with the Saints. So I don't think there's a team right now that I'm not willing to talk football about. Obviously, Panthers come first, but I'm willing to talk about any of the other 31 teams as well.
Well, and one of the things I love about this channel is that everybody's a fan of whichever team, but we can come on and we can talk, and especially during college football season, I find that the conversations with the draft professors, Hank may be a Washington homer and Drew may be a Kansas homer, but you guys know college football better than anybody, just which players are where. Hank will be here for some Santana Hopper propaganda. But you guys were talking about players that I hadn't heard talked about anywhere else. So my hat's off to you. And Jordan, I'd look forward to going through a college football season with you, in the upcoming cycle as well. And then Jordan, you're expecting a child right around Epic Mock, right?
Yeah. So April 10th is the expected due date. So we'll see when he wants to come. So
is it child number one?
Number two.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it toughest job you'll ever love is being a parent.
Absolutely.
So, yep. So I want to remind everybody that Epic Mock is April 9th, 10th, and 11th. We are looking for a few more drafters and podcasters. So, for example, Buzz, I might want you to take the Giants in that. So I see that you're here in the chat. And then Daniel for Home Squad. So Home Squad will have one of the podcasts. I don't know if they're doing the Packers or a different team, but they're definitely going to do one. And Home Squad is excellent college football content, and they will be podcasting with the draft professor once May starts. So ironically, Daniel had this time slot up to January, and then we rearranged it so he could focus more on his recruiting content as opposed to the draft content. So, but Daniel will be here once May comes around. We can't do summer scouting without him. So that being said, for Drew, Jordan, Hank, myself, and the 85 podcasters at the Draft Professor, thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy your Monday night, and we will see you on a podcast again tomorrow.